Good morning. My name is Richard Miller, and welcome, as always, to Never Not Here. And we started a new type of series where we're doing mini panel discussions, maybe you'd say, but we're not just talking one-on-one, but we're talking in a group of three. And I'm calling the series something like This Amazing Time. I mean, it just seems so electric in the air, and both collectively and both individually. Individually, I feel it. Collectively, we're moving toward a political season, which is always a good show around here. And it seems to be some problems too. I mean, who can deny it? I mean, we've built a thick skin about our collective insecurities, and now that skin is either getting penetrated or somehow we're allowing it to be thinner, and we're seeing exactly what might be real on the mind-made self front. So let me introduce our participants, and please help me welcome Ronda LaRue. Hi, Ronda.
Hey, Richard. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, we've had a good time, but it was so long ago, you know.
Doesn't seem like it was, but I guess it's probably a year or so.
Yeah, maybe even more. It might be getting on to two. Wowee. And our other participant is in Sweden right now, and please help me welcome Nishant Matthews. So Nishant, hi.
Thank you, Richard.
I don't know exactly how to start. I'm just, I've got a lot of, I hear a lot about our spiritual life, because that's kind of like, I don't know, what it is. It's my avocation to listen, and I believe I have a certain amount of understanding, whatever that might be, and maybe just to make it real basic, or start with some as basic as we could go. I guess we're saying something's here that we might even give it a word like absolute. There's something, somehow we're here, and that's knowable, and it's unshakable. So I don't know, Nishant, is that a starting point, that there is an absolute, or is that are we just making that up? Or
for me, the starting point is just our own experience, and just the ability to pay attention to our own experience. That much we can say we know. So for me, that starts with just a sense of how we sit, how we feel, how we breathe. Follow that a little deeper into what the emotional body is registering, and follow that a little deeper, and then there comes a sense of heartfulness and spaciousness. Now, for many people, that leads to what you might call the absolute. But I like to kind of walk my way in from my own experience, rather than have an idea of what I'm going to find.
That's really excellent. That is really good coaching. Because so many times we find what we expect. We have expectations, and then if we don't find it, we are thinking like we missed, or we're going wrong, and we're not willing to follow our own experience to wherever it leads. We're trying to steer it.
Yes, I think one of the fundamental changes of this time and of this age is that people are getting the courage and insight to trust themselves and trust their own experience, and not have to live according to a book or a set of laws, but more in the tuning of their own presence in their own heart.
So many of our expectations have been dashed or crashed, or there's so much disappointment, and so then is that the force that throws us back onto ourselves?
Hopefully, but often what happens is that we don't really know how to negotiate having a painful or a difficult experience. And when you don't know how to handle your own experience, you meet something negative or something difficult, you tend to contract and then leave your own experience from that contraction and head out. Will somebody else please tell me? You look for another guidance, rather than work through your own fear, or work through your own anger, or work through your own sadness, and recover space inside yourself.
I just came back from leading a retreat in Palm Springs, of all places, which is not where I would have thought I would be leading a retreat, but it's an old Moroccan old world villa. So you feel like you've stepped into something ancient when you walk into the property. And it was a small group of about 10 of us in the retreat. And one of the things, just to sort of reverberate what you're saying, Nishant, is that I find that I steer away from definitive definitions of anything. So I think the more hallowed ground is to steer away from the meaning of things and to allow the mystery. So I'll say to people in the group, we really must fall in love with the mystery, must fall in love with the process, so that from the moment-to-moment experience and denying no thing, so good, bad, and ugly, whatever is showing up in the life, to use that as the honest portal to finding that inner space underneath. So I had a lot of people with, which, is the case of humanity, with some pretty serious and difficult struggles in their life, deaths, and a father who just deserted from post-traumatic stress from the war, and somebody whose father had just died. And there's always these things of life that come into a retreat. And in a one-day retreat, in this case, these people wanted, as soon as the discomfort came with the difficult process, wanted to suddenly rise up to some kind of either meaning on one side or escape it on the other. But if you stay in that nurturing, nourishing truth, eyes wide open, honoring of the pain of the experience, if it's pain, I think that moment offers the fertile ground for a breakthrough into what you, Richard, are calling the absolute, but it doesn't even have to be called that. It's that groundless ground.
Sometimes I'm wondering, I guess, that you have to say these things because you can slide into a meaning and you think you're just I think I'm just looking at what is and I'm giving it a meaning, and somehow I don't see that step where I'm just taking in pure experience of this moment, and I'm already explaining it to myself. And somehow talking about meanings and agreed upon meanings might make you realize that you're prone to that and help you stay in that open space, right?
Yeah, or talking, I guess in my way, talking about meanings can become a little bit of, if I can say this on the air, mental masturbation, because it's really easy to get caught in the mental loop, whereas the direct experience is something else. And as we know, you can never really put a word to it. So, I love the process of bringing somebody to their own experience because it's before the word. It doesn't need a word, and yet we keep trying with words to point to it, from here, from here, from here, from here. But if you can keep resting back into the unshakable experience and not need a word on your tongue, but stay in that space, it's already known,
Is that what you just shared?
I think Richard, we have to give Richard a little slack here for what I hear is that you're looking for something stable and something permanent. Meaning has the illusion of being stable and permanent, where daily living has all kinds of flux in it. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm up, I'm down, I'm in, I'm out, I'm spaced out, I'm present. And Ronda is talking about a ground, something that is really stable in life. And what we've often tried to do is kind of write something in stone and say, this is it, rather than kind of ride the waves of our own experience and find that the oceanic, the movement, if we allow the movement, inside the movement, there's stability.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So the movement becomes the ground and not an absolute ground, but the movement itself becomes that. And there's an art to following that, to riding that wave.
What does it mean the movement becomes the ground? Because, the movement is in the ground or on the ground, right? Or, the movement is the only way to see the ground? Or,
I guess maybe what I'm speaking to in reflection back with what Nishant is saying too, I think if I'm hearing you, and I believe I am, is that, in the movement of life, so if we're evolution, if we're consciousness ever evolving, then we always have to be on that frontier of the unknown. So on that frontier of the unknown, one has to stay in whatever the movement of that is, but within that there's a steadiness or a spaciousness or an eternal ground that's a moving ground. So people talk about truth as if it's an absolute, but, there's not an absolute truth. Truth is a moving, evolving, opening frontier. So
Yes.
words like absolute,
Right,
so,
right.
so
So, I mean, in a way, a lot of talks we do, or people are steering us toward the ground, right? Then they want us to have an experience or a taste of the ground, and then realize, oh, the movement is superimposed on the ground. And is that right? Or
Well, let's say it like this: if there is no resistance to the movement, then there is a sense of stability and ground. It's in the resistance to the feelings, or resistance to the flow, or resistance to the change, that we get disturbance. But without resistance, what is really just is.
so then sometimes it helps us to story and say that, tell a story even about that, and say somehow whatever shows up in your life is right for you at this moment. And so then we can say, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't resist it.
Most of us learned how to handle our emotions when we were 2, 3, 4 years old, and really haven't changed. So when we get angry, we more or less revert back to a very young age as a way of being angry. Or we get sad, we go back to being a little kid as a way of being sad. And as we develop an adult consciousness, we can look at sadness or anger as a door or a portal or a gateway as much as a wall or a barrier.
So we didn't change.
That's when it gets really interesting.
We didn't change, but we could have changed, right? I mean, or we're thinking that we can even change now. Finally, we can go back and revisit that and somehow let it be finished, But what's the mechanism of not changing?
resistance.
Escape, right?
Well, for me, the mechanism of changing is just this hypnosis that we create. For me, it's very simple. When people contract, let's say you get really angry, people say, I'm angry. That's a very contracted. People say, I'm sad. They contract. As soon as you contract, you lose the present tense and you're in the past. And the stronger the contraction, the further into the past you go. So that's a style that you've learned and you've repeated for 40 years. You're not going to stop it
Immediately.
But you can become aware of it. And in becoming aware of it, you can find there are many options available to you in that experience.
Is that contraction then just like a fear of the present moment? Because maybe you don't know you're returning to the past, but in a way, I mean, it's laid out, it works that way, so that it gives you a success for leaving this present moment.
Yeah, basically, like I said, most of us learn to handle our feelings while we're kids. And as kids, we feel wrong to have emotions, and we also feel, I can't handle what's going on. We feel insecure. And then the more you contract, the more powerless you feel, and it goes on and on like that.
So I guess I was asking about absolute because I was thinking like absolute is awareness or the field, or like we made mention to these different, the awareness, consciousness, the field where all motion takes place. So in a way that doesn't change, right? And then what changes is just the content of our daily lives and basically our thought and interpretation structures. I don't know, is that fair to say?
Rhonda?
I watch the traps of the mind, so I lean toward sort of taking this more humble approach of letting the appearance or the appearance of life's forms, the places where there's resistance, keeping awake to where I'm withholding, where one is withholding. It seems like it's all just an awareness of withholding. Yes, is it a moment of yes or is it a moment of no? But not trying to get somewhere, like not trying to achieve the absolute, because that becomes its own trap. So I tend to lean toward stay awake and in love with the process of everything that shows up. So if you're falling back in an old psychological pattern that's sort of subconscious, and you feel and there's a caving in, or there's a drama, or there's a crutch, or there's an anger, to cultivate curiosity, to cultivate a curious awareness of it, because that's where the breakthrough, the automatic alchemical transformation can take place, because you're not, on the one hand, just caving into it, being led by the nose at whatever thought or emotion comes, on the one hand, and you're not grasping for achievement of the power of now on the other side, you know? So to ride that wave is to me the highest sort of integrity of allowing form and formlessness to be in this divine dance.
I like what you said, the grasping of the power of now, because a lot of times that is very, very subconscious. But it's really not that much different from just trying to change our external circumstances, because it's trying to change our internal circumstances, I don't think it could make people feel kind of righteous, or like, you know, or it could make them deny a lot of the actions in their life. I see that all the time.
The tricky slope, and you know, trying to anything is a red flag.
We've been talking ocean a lot, and waves and stuff like that. For me, one of the things that really helps in some of these things, especially like strong feelings, strong grief, strong anger, strong sadness, is to see it not as personal as we tend to make it. That actually we're the front edge of a wave in the ocean, or we are the leading edge of the ocean, and behind us are millions of people who have wrestled with anger, or millions of people who have wrestled with grief, or millions of people who have wrestled with outrage. And somehow we're connected to all of that. And it's not just me doing this by myself. It's me trying to do something that actually is going to affect the whole ocean.
Yeah, that's great. That's where my word curiosity comes in, because the curiosity opens you to the inquiry of seeing it as a universal. So all of a sudden there opens the possibility of recognizing the universality of my own personal suffering, and then it shifts.
Exactly.
I totally like that, you know, because it's kind of where I'm driving to. Because many times, you know, theories and concepts and so on are kind of like disqualified, at least in the beginning of the spiritual search, because somehow maybe it's an exaggeration to step away from content.
I was just gonna say, I have to come back around to the trying as the red flag of the trap. You know, to me, there's like this. It's a different language. It's like learning the language of soul. To me, is one of a tremendous appetite for paradox, and this recognition that there can't the trier is in the way. The trier, again, whatever the trier is about, is the very thing that's blocking that ocean, that communion with the ocean, and communion with the ocean can't even be a goal. It's like it just is. So for me to be in my own life with whatever my struggles are, and to stay awake to it in an honoring way, simply has the current of the undercurrent of what we're calling the ocean, the current of the wave there, and up here the little mind's going to keep doing its thing. It can't help it. That's what it does. So for me, meditation is really only also an act of coming to that realization of the steadiness or the spaciousness, as Nishant has been putting it, sort of that open space that is the moving, flowing ground of our being. And at the same time, this thing never stops. The little sparks of the mind that wants to try, that wants to fight again, that wants to resist, that wants to withhold, it's going to carry on. I think the mistake we make as a culture or as spiritual seekers is hoping that we can just come to this current and have no more of this. And it's a mistaken sense. And that's where I guess I get into my dueling non-dualist situation. But to actually allow the current to be the place from which you are known, and there's the observation of this and the humility of this and the movement of this that can never stop. So both are actually a beautiful dance. How could there be life without the two together? I mean, Osho does a beautiful job of bringing that together. I'm reading his again.
And I think, you know, for the brain, this is very hard to handle. For the heart's big enough to hold duality, big enough to hold paradox. big enough to hold, I'm magnificent and I'm freaked out at the same time, or both of them, or all of them. I think as you drop in and use the heart intelligence more and more and more, it gets very rich in the complexity of who we are and what we can embrace.
Mm-hmm. Do we get freaked out because we just don't expect what's happening? In other words, we didn't expect to get a cancer. We didn't expect our brother to die. We didn't expect an earthquake to take our home down. Or, I mean, like preconceiving how things should be is basically a freak out, right?
For me, our freak out comes from not being that well connected into our true nature or our real self. And every now and then, when you're not really well connected, something happens and bang, you don't have any ground underneath you.
See, that's kind of what I'm trying to get to, is if we can put any words, and they're not going to be real words, but if somehow we can point and draw a circle or something like that, what's this true self? And, I have an idea, like how a lot of people say that the true self is something that you would discover in meditation, or you would discover in quietness, or you would discover by sidestepping content of your life and content of the earth, the world, and content of the people's struggles. Somehow it seems like you have to sidestep that. I mean, do you or don't? Or
well, it's exactly what Ronda is saying. I'm going to let her say it again in a minute. But no, you embrace it. You ride it. You cooperate with it. You participate with it. You offer your heart to it.
What if true self is a commitment? Maybe it's not something to be found at all. Maybe it's something to recognize I have to stand and step into as an openness. So whatever happens to my life, if I'm caught off guard, I have a choice in that moment. Which way am I going to be conscious and look at it? Am I gonna turn it into a new age hoodoo religion and go, everything's meant to happen as it is? So I'm just, that's a mistake on one side too. What if I allow the humility and grace to actually suffer because it threw me off, and at the same time I get curious and I listen because my larger being is grounded and founded on following the paradoxical movement of truth, groundless ground, as best as I'm able to have clear seeing, and not to attach to clear seeing, but simply reaffirm, that this is spirit and flesh. So both, the tandem dance is awesome.
Wow.
But to err on either side is a mind trap.
Yeah, and easy to do. Actually, I totally feel that. I really totally understand that, but I still want to lay it out step by step, because I want to unfold this thing where everyone can start just to follow and see, well, okay, spiritual teaching can take us this way and can take us this way, and really they're all
Here's
words.
A simple thing. Let's say your business just failed, and your wife's unhappy and your dog is sick, yeah? What happens to your heart? And for most people, it's like this, right? And as soon as you contract and go like this, chances are you're 6 years old or 5 years old, and you're overwhelmed and life is unbearable and you need help and you need to be saved and all kinds of stuff. And you have the right to be angry. And if for some miracle at this moment you just have a little bit of awareness and bring in your heart, then you can see, well, I'm in a mess. And as soon as you don't fight that, as soon as you rest with that, your heart gets just a little bigger. And you realize the mess isn't quite as bad as I thought it was. And as soon as you can rest with that and digest and absorb that, your heart gets a little bigger even still. And you realize there is some opportunity here. When you get about here, you realize there's more spaciousness in my heart than problem. I'm actually going to be okay here. And when you get out here, you realize I'm not alone. This whole idea of me suffering all by myself in the middle of some city is only the idea of this one. But the fact is, I'm not alone. I'm a wave in this monster ocean, and the whole ocean is around me and behind me and under me, and Um, to the degree that I can open, I will experience I'm part of something bigger.
Whatever comes up is meant to be met as your worthy teacher. It's like, that's your worthy teacher. Whatever comes lambasting at you. And what's that moment, that pivotal moment, when there's that slight inclination to not to cave in, and then by grace or by whatever, by what mechanism is there that slight movement of the heart that allows, as you're saying, that seeding, and the seeding starts to germinate. I mean, once there's any seed of the heart put into a problem, any little seed, it has no choice but to start to germinate. So, it's something, there has to be just that one little seeding to get from here to there.
I think that pivotal point has to be presence. You have to be here in order to do it, because if somehow you figure out I should duck my head, because something's whizzing by, that's the moment when you're already into it, and you didn't notice that transition, and
maybe you've seen something not work so many times when you've caved in and you reverted back to the age of 3 or 4 or 5 automatically, because we can't help it, and then all of our identified psychology comes into play, and we're right back in the gig, and we don't know it. We can't help it because it's subconscious, but maybe that's happened enough times that becomes a secondary pain that becomes so acute that there's something that says, wait a minute, is there some other way? And then the perceptual doorway is open to the possibility of feeling that seed in the heart. Then space has to germinate. So I have a very personal example. I mean, I've gone through a very difficult time with my partner recently. It was a very painful thing. It caved his heart in, and he had a moment where it could have been the end of this relationship, 6 years, and rightfully so, with all the justifications and all the reasons why. And something in the heart said that he said he felt his brain say one thing, and out of his mouth came the words of his heart, which still knew love. And that moment, it shifted and changed his life in the most miraculous way I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of miracles. It was that moment of seeding where the heart does something and follows that. And as Nishant just said, it keeps the spaciousness opens. And then this thing doesn't stop. The pain doesn't go away. When you're in the ordeal of suffering, you're in the ordeal of suffering. The mistake I think we make is trying to get rid of it too prematurely, and instead not knowing how to nourish the alchemical transformation of it, to harness its energy for something much bigger and universal, back to the universal.
I think that's so simple and so clear. The mistake we make is trying to get rid of it too quick,
In terms of holding it or not getting rid of it too quickly, the body is often your best friend. Like, actually, do I have legs here? Do I have ground? What if I breathe? What if I do a simple breathe in, feel, breathe out, let go, breathe in, feel? Just those simple things of staying in the body gives you a hold on present tense reality, where the alchemy can really do its thing. Where if you just try and do it without the body, good luck.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think for me personally, one of the most profound moments of my own growth were when I recognized, because I've always been very mental and very, pleased and proud of my mental capacity back in the old days. And it was an amazing shift when I recognized that the higher intelligence is in the body, and that there's literally a listening from the body that has a vast intuitive wisdom that this thing can never get. It comes in after the fact and goes, something just happened. I think of our ex-President Bush, where it comes in and says, I'm the decider. And it's always after the fact. It's like, no, you are so far behind what just happened in the body.
I'm really loving this discussion. And, I get some other discussions where, I don't know, people do coach to stay with the body and stay with the feelings and stuff, but when the feelings come from, well, I guess all feelings in a way come from concepts. I don't know, dissatisfaction is a concept, any kind of preconception is conceptual. It says it shouldn't be this way, and then we're trying to escape, or that the tightening comes that we talked about was our ticket to the past.
You stay with a feeling, again, as a need to get rid of it, or almost to victimize yourself into glorifying it, then yeah, it's very conceptually based, and you're not going to move very far. But if you stay with the feeling from a curious state of listening for what's underneath it, not needing, like I say, don't be needy greedy, not needing anything, but actual curiosity. So there's an element of unattached, the observer observing the observed. There's a little bit of that going on. So you're not denying the feeling, but you're not glorifying your attachment to it, because that happens a lot too with a lot of somatic work, where people get into replicating their trauma over and over again, and they're making the groove deeper and deeper. That's not, I think, what we're speaking about. I think we're pointing toward the body as a place for like the lake of you, a deep pool of listening. And if you really stay with the body and listen underneath it, whatever the trauma is, whatever the circumstance is, good, bad, or ugly, underneath it, if you stay curious, underneath it is stillness and purity, and it doesn't have any movement to it. There's no issue. But it's quite different.
If you bring awareness or a good quality of curiosity to anything, awareness is just in itself alchemical. If I say I'm angry, and I sit and have 3 breaths with it, on that 3rd breath, that anger is not the same as it was on the 1st breath.
And if the awareness that something happened. Yes, no, but
it starts unfolding in the direction of its true nature. Mm-hmm. And our experience actually becomes very friendly and very truthful when we stay with it. It will unfold and open the space dimension where all rightness becomes more and more clear.
Perfect example, and that's the art. That's the art of the following. We're not an individual being making our way through life. When you're in that kind of dynamic interplay relationship, you're moving, learning, seeing, moving, learning, seeing. The seeing is in context of what's happening. That's awareness in action. So there's not, I'm semi-permeable. I'm no longer me. But
exactly, it becomes more and more permeable. And me starts to have more and more space.
Yes.
And believe me, if you could, the me that reveals itself is just more and more amazing.
And unknown.
If you hang out with me is an amazing revelation. Go ahead, Rhonda.
No, I'm just that's beautiful, because I'm on this wave with you. I mean, in that moment, it becomes more and more larger and larger, and not so much you, but actually like what's the verb of you, being engaged in the moment. So you in the moment are indiscernible in a certain way, and that's what I say to people is, sort of the art of being in your genius, because genius isn't a thing, a static Ronda, a static Nishant, a static Richard. It's a movement in that regard where you're watching, listening, the awareness, the curious awareness opens everything, and then synchronicities and things come that are just a natural part of the dance. Then alchemy has no choice but to follow, because you're in it. You're in the pool of it.
So in that context, is there a difference between the inner and the outer? I mean, no matter what's coming in from the inner or from the outer, it's still a dance that you can be with, right?
The dance is it, not the you doing it.
Yeah.
It's only the dance.
I mean, inner and outer doesn't mean anything, or mean something, or what?
It does, what if
search
it
in, search. People say search within, right? We've been looking out for so long, search within now. I mean, is that just is that an artificial distinction?
Everything's an artificial distinction if it's the mind that's looking at it.
I would ask you, Richard, to tell me where inner stops and outer starts, and what happens at the boundary.
So everything is inner, because everything is just my perception or is awareness, or so then those things aren't necessary anymore, inner and outer. Search within, search without. Try to fix, I guess they're trying to coach us, don't try to fix your surroundings, but just look at what your mental gyrations about your surroundings and see if they're all necessary. Maybe none of them are necessary.
Richard?
Yes?
Richard, forgive me, but you're always looking for solutions. You're trying to take what we say and This is the solution, and we're really not offering solutions in that same way. I would love people to improve their life. I would hate for people to live blissfully in a sloppy apartment, or to not feed the dog, or not take care of the kids, or not pay their taxes, or not live in accordance with all of the responsibilities of being a human on Earth right now. I think we can't just say it's all an inner story either.
So what if the highest integrity, wholeness being the word for integrity, wholeness, is to be the dancing? So there's not an inner or an outer, or there's both. So you're dancing with both. There's an awareness of both. You bring what appears as constriction or withholding or identification or love or any of those things, what appears is that you bring it to the moment of now, this moment now, and stay curious this moment of now, because like Nishant said, in a moment, the anger in breath one is not the same quality at breath two. If you start recognizing, get like the taste on your lips of the different qualities moment to moment. Here's anger. I'm still angry, but it's shifting every single breath. The quality is slightly different. What if I become a connoisseur of the flavor? Now it's not an inner or an outer. It's both. It's a dance.
Mm-hmm. And trying to separate inner from outer and choose one over the other is troublemaking.
Yeah, at minimum. Yeah.
If you separate any of us, any part of us, if you try and separate, I want to work on this anger in me, and you separate it from the rest of you, it all has to come back, and the intelligence flows very beautifully if you bring it together.
Even working on your anger is a separation, because you're saying my anger. I want to fix my anger. I want to be a person without any.
And after 3 breaths, I would ask you: is this your anger, or how much is it? What percent of this is from your father, or from your mother, or your grandfather, your grandmother? Maybe you're unwinding 1,000 years of history here in meeting this anger.
That was a good breath.
It seems like it's so easy to try to get divorced from collective pain. And I guess my beef is that a lot of times in spirituality, it sounds like they're actually encouraging disengagement and saying that everything is perfect. So just disengage from that. And
yeah, I think that this is one.
I find that hurtful. Somehow it hurts me.
I think this is one of the big steps that's going on in 21st century, is that we're not trying to separate from our experience. We're trying to reintegrate. There is the possibility that we can reintegrate all of the pieces that got left behind, all the parts of us that are split or separate or hurting, that we don't have to just split into some far away awareness, which is what many religions have taught for hundreds of years, but we can actually open our heart and reintegrate all of it.
Like it feels like there's almost like a collective soul retrieval in shamanic terms. That's the possibility, but as Krishnamurti, would kind of point to, that if we have to be doing it within ourselves too. So, how much do-gooder can there be out there, compassion for the world, unless we've actually are on a microcosm entering into it ourselves too. So as we see our own issues, personal issues, not as an over-identification, but as a breathing into until it reveals its universality, now we have a chance to change the world. Now we have a chance for collective to start to shift too, because it's not separate. It's not separate at all. It can't be separate. We can't go out and save the world without the individual also learning that within oneself, embodying it.
So you just mean compassion for ourselves is where it starts?
I mean following the full trail of that art, of the art of listening and honoring, so that there's not a separation, that everything that goes on in my world is being listened to as I go through my day. I'm not grasping, oh, today's about anger, so I'm going to watch it throughout the whole day. But I am attentive to whatever comes my way. I'm aware of it, and I'm watching things that happen along the day with it, so that there's a possibility of a subtle layer of perception to break through. So it's more falling, like resting in the unknown while not denying anything, moving in that way. It's like back to the current thing. It's like staying in the current, letting this little mind do its little thing with whatever comes up, staying in the current as I go through the day. And in doing that, moment by moment, breath by breath, a new relationship occurs, because a new revelation, a new seeing, a new sensing. It's different qualities, the anger or the angst or the pain or the suffering or the joy, slightly different angst, slightly different flavor, slightly different taste in the mouth. I keep following that. That's worship. That's alive to life. Now I'm alive to life. Now my soul is in its wholeness with the moment. If I can do that, I can offer that to the world. I can see the world that way. Then there's something to offer the world. But we can't, I think collectively, that's what we're starting to see is that ability to bring in such divergent pieces of ourselves into a whole new configuration of paradox wholeness. Nothing separated, nothing kept in its little parts and compartments.
Integration, I mean, I just, when you said that, it just felt, I really took a deep hit on it, like, wow, maybe I'm waiting for that or something, or it just, but, the first thing with integration is just to put that word out there and say, hey, put it in somebody's head and say, that's actually an option. That could be something we could be even doing.
I would say it like this. A picture that has been in the back of my head and I'm working with for years is that each of us are here as created, not by accident, but created to be part of this co-creation at this time. Like we're all members of an orchestra. And when we get over guilting ourselves, blaming ourselves, separating from ourselves, running from ourselves, dressing ourselves up, forgetting ourselves, when we actually start to be present and integrate, we actually start to make some kind of hum. We start to play our instrument, we start to take our place in the orchestra. And I believe that as we come into tune and take our place in the orchestra, that co-creates something in the universe of harmony, of grace, of more light, that's available not just for us, but for many people.
I like the harmonic of that.
Thank you. It's yeah, for me, it's like, and also like learning to feel, what kind of instrument is this? Am I a little flute? Am I a big drum? Am I an oboe? Am I a cello? Really, in deep respect for yourself, you'll see that the more respect you bring yourself, the more wonderful this self will offer what it's got.
From all of its parts.
So the way you're expressing, the way you're saying that this begs expression, to see what my voice is. Am I a flute? Am I an oboe? And so then it kind of suggests that expression is a way to understand, as a way to see this.
I believe that in the expression of your love is the best way to get to know yourself. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's what I'm always saying, because I'm always saying, let's get engaged, like I like engaging. And before I didn't engage. Of course, there was reasons I didn't. You could just say that's what it was, or this is what it is now, or what it is what is I'm not engaged. And I guess people have energy comes up and energy goes down to get involved, right? And I don't know. I think it's more simple than that. It just seems like when I have an explanation that says nothing good can come out of this, all my energy dries up. But when I have an energy that even says, I'm a flute, I want to sing, that might be enough just to open up the channels, right? And engagement, I think, is some kind of like by itself. It just evolves and moves just by being hooked up, but by being stuck down here in my little basement and kind of holding my hands over my head. Doesn't seem like there's much growth in that. I don't know. I mean,
I think you're onto something, Richard.
I'm curious in our three-way, but where are some places where you find the greatest freedom in your being? Where are you most like,
I like to talk. I like to talk to people, you know, and somehow it also kind of makes me discover things. And I like to talk to people like we're doing now. You know, it's not always you can talk with your partner or your in-laws or something like that, because somehow that's sometimes seems too patterned. And we don't want to give each other that much attention, you know. There's that pattern again, so I already know that. But somehow talking with somebody new, so then I like to engage. And I've been going down to what they call Occupy Chicago and just seeing, well, what is it that, you know, what's broken about society, and hearing a lot of people. And it thrills me. It thrills me on the way while I'm in the train, you know. I take the train down because I don't want to park down there. It thrills me while I'm walking around and just saying hi to everyone, and everyone says hi back. It's not like head down like normal life on the street, you know. And it thrills me when I'm leaving thinking like, wow, I mean, these guys are just me. I mean, they're not really any different from me. I mean, we're just all trying to understand what's happening. And then great understandings come. I don't know, this morning I was talking to a guy in Dunkin' Donuts, and when I left there, I was walking the dog, and I thought I understood the whole Republican Party, and I kind of understood everything. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, you know, it's kind of like amazing insights do flare up.
So I guess one of the things I offer to people who are sort of seekers is, what if rather than sitting at the crossroad, and I'm not saying you are, I'm just sort of wrapping up on this on another way, but you know, rather than sitting at a crossroad looking for your life purpose, trying to figure out which instrument you are in the orchestra, what if, because you're never going to figure it out sitting there at the crossroad. What if it's only possible to live your genius, to find your way on the path unwinding, which means you've got to be in the downhill ski. You got to be in it in real life every day with that alertness going, here's where my passion is, here's where I feel alive, here's where I feel space, and not needing to know how it's going to unravel, so that it's almost like a trail. At some point along the trail, we come to vista points where we can turn back and see a little bit of what the trail has been. But in the walking of it, you don't get to know very often. You know, in the walking of it, there's just the walking of it. And then every now and then we'll come to a turning point and be able to see. And then that's like a backstitch, a moment of, and enough backstitches, you start to get a sense of, wow, there's a genius to my life. It's got its own genius. I'm in the walk.
So life is our spiritual practice.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Back to the absolutely.
I think one of the keys in life being a spiritual practice is allowing life to touch you, and you to be shaken or be taken, or not know, or you know, whenever love really takes you, you lose it. You lose who you thought you were. And whenever you're really present or passionate with your experience, again, if you let life touch you, you lose it. And after a while of losing it, you realize I'd always reorganize into a higher level. It's worth it. And for me, it's like one of the tricks is to help seduce people or help people fall in love with this space of losing it or being touched and realizing you can handle it.
That's the mastery. If you want to use the word mastery, learning that art, because it's never easy to go into the unknown. It's never going to be easy to lose it, but you just lose it. And then reorganize, you're right. And then there's that backstitch of seeing, like an evolution. You get to see a little bit of the turn of the spiral of your own evolution.
Yeah. And I think, Richard, when you were saying this morning, you were walking and you met this guy in Dunkin' Donuts, and all of a sudden you had an understanding of the whole Republican Party. That was a hard experience, I would say. Not something you figured out, but actually something that came from your heart expanding. Oh, I was touched. Something happened here. And in that heart expanding, there is a sense of understanding.
Right. I mean, I think it was both, because like somehow by having this, it was definitely a broadening and an opening and like a no blaming whatsoever, I just got it that those guys see something. They see an impending doom, which is an impending doom, right? I mean, they see like the insanity, part of our insanity, right? And it's not really the other party's fault either. I mean, it's just like our institutions are out of balance. And there is an insanity there. And so then it was definitely a hard opening, and in a way, I don't know, many times I feel like the heart opens and closes with an explanation or an underlying belief. I don't know if that's necessarily 100% of the times, but that seems to operate with me a lot. That when I see that, oh gosh, it is impersonal, like when I realize that, hey, that I just see the whole matrix and I say, well, those guys that's not them. It's the whole matrix there. And so then those guys are not even forgiven. They're not even to blame in the first place. And then that's a huge heart opening. And I realize that's me in there too, because that's the whole channel of our collective. And as observed by our collective behavior is the observant point. But I mean, it's even more than behavior. It's just our collective, I don't know, what do you call it? A belief structure.
I also would just put in a real simple thing that you shared coffee with a guy, a stranger, and you found your heart opening, and you just can't believe that in Chicago in 2011, you can go down in the streets in the morning and meet someone and have a heart experience like that also.
Exactly.
I think that's the preciousness. You realize this country has brought us all apart, and now we're starting to come back together, and that's very touching.
Even with divergent ideology, there you find yourself perceptually understanding the Republican. You just see it.
Yeah.
And when you see
he wasn't a Republican, but I mean, I was really laying a story on him, really, really strong. But he stayed open to it,
I mean, the seeing, falling in love with the seeing, falling in love with the seeing. Just
Yeah. That's exactly what I mean by when I said I gave a name to this series and called it These Amazing Times. And that's exactly what I know. I'm saying you don't have to go to a satsang or a spiritual teacher. There's a heart opening just around the corner.
Or maybe just in that chair.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is an invitation, right? That's the invitation of Never Not Here right now. That's the invitation of a talk with Nishant and Ronda and Richard. That's the invitation. This is a heart opening, and really, it's the only thing that's worth doing, and it's the only thing that really is going to be life affirming or is life affirming, and all the other things we tried, like armaments races and stuff, didn't work. And wealth gathering.
Well, they worked in a way because they're bringing us to this.
Exactly. That's, we can rephrase how they worked and what the point was, We thought it was something totally different. That's amazing. These amazing times.
Amazing times. One little pitch I would like to put in here about amazing times is we're all being taken, in my opinion. It's almost like the expanding universe is expanding inside us. It's not just outer space expanding, it's inside us right now. And there's a tendency to think of change as something against me. I'm the one who should be in control and in charge and handle and take care. And if the change is coming from deep inside us, which it is, we have to learn a little bit of respect, a little bit of trust that there's nothing wrong with me. I can let go into this kind of change. It's what's supposed to happen in these amazing times.
And even have humility for the birthing pain of that, because change, our system is sort of hardwired against change in a way. That the physical form is hardwired for homeostasis, and so to have some humility for the birthing pain of it all, fall into that too.
Yeah.
The hardwiring is actually the belief in stability instead of the knowing of the flux of life. And the whole belief that there is a stable point and we already passed it, we should go back there. That's kind of like the hardwiring, basically, I think.
Interesting times.
Really, what I'm looking for, like what I want to support 100% is just this, and what we say, what we have said, as far as I can understand it, and I do so many talks where it just says nobody can fix the world, and the world is perfect, and just in a way retreat inside, and I don't know, I don't feel like that is helpful one bit, And I'm just so appreciative of you, Rhonda, and you, Nishant, to just come out and tell it like it is. I mean, tell it that life is our teaching, and life is our, life is what we're here for. It's just life. And I really.
If we're not going to get it in life, where are we going to get it?
I want to say thank you, Rhonda. Real pleasure to meet you and be with you. Beautiful heart and beautiful brain and mind, and really sitting next to you gives confidence and inspiration. I thank you.
Thank you. I'm richened by your imagery. I feel it all through my body. I appreciate your vision of seeing.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for bringing us together, Richard. I love our talks and meetings and play and all these kind of things. I'm grateful for your big heart and good mind and all of this.
Thank you very much, Nishant. Thanks for coming to us from across the ocean, and thanks for joining us on Never Not Here. Much appreciated. Your valuable experience and your valuable way of expressing it.
Thank you.
And thank you, Rhonda. It's always just wonderful fun and a thrill to be with you.
Enjoy it myself.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for taking pleasure and feeling our heartfelt or our felt sense of how words can actually make life easy and really make us realize what a pleasure it is to be alive. And so thank you much for coming. So goodbye for now.
Take care, you guys.
Bye-bye. Much love.
Much love.